With just weeks left in the 2024 election, California Democrat politicians have a sinister plan to flood our voter registration rolls with dubious registrations. Coming up, we'll tell you all about their plan and what we're doing to fight back. I'm Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California, and the importance of election integrity cannot be overstated. Too many Americans have lost faith and confidence and trust in the way in which elections are conducted in many states in this nation. California has by far the worst practices. In 2022, the Transparency Foundation audited those elections in California and found that California failed 9 out of 10 election integrity standards for how elections should be conducted. California is by far the worst. And yet, California politicians have now decided to advance a sinister plan to flood our voter registration rolls here in California with a bunch of dubious and likely ineligible registrations for voters. We'll talk about that in just a moment and what we're doing to fight back. But I want to also talk about the national Democrat plan to try to expedite the registration of illegal immigrants or non-citizens so that they can vote in this election. Fox News has the story. Headline: Federal government hastily processing new citizenship request is reshaping the electorate. And this is a story about the New York Times, actually, reporting on research that groups of immigrants have been obviously very Democrat-leaning in how they vote. And that in this administration, the Biden administration has expedited the processing of these migrants so that they can be registered as voters. The data was published last week talking about the electoral implications of registering these immigrants to vote. Quote, immigrants are becoming U.S. citizens at fastest clip in years. I wonder why. I wonder why the Biden administration is so hot to trot to get these people registered to vote by, of course, processing their citizenship applications in this country. The New York Times reports, quote, the federal government is processing citizenship requests at the fastest clip in a decade, moving rapidly through a backlog that built up during the Trump administration and the coronavirus pandemic. At ceremonies in courthouses, convention centers, and sports arenas funded by taxpayers across the country, thousands of immigrants are becoming new Americans every week and becoming eligible to vote. Yay, Democrats, in time for the presidential election this fall. This should send alarm bells off for everyone. It's not a surprise that they want to get folks registered to vote, to cling to power, so they can continue to have open borders. But here in California, it's even worse because California Democrats want to continue to expand the weaponization of something called motor voter. They've proposed Senate Bill 299, and we are urging a no vote on Senate Bill 299. Reform California is strongly opposed to this proposal because it takes California's already failed motor voter program and puts it on steroids. How does it do that? Well, first and foremost, it changes motor voter when you go to the DMV so that instead of a voluntary prompt saying, would you like to register, that no matter what you ask the DMV for, you will now automatically be registered to vote. They won't even ask you. You're just automatically registered to vote. This is insane. Right now, our biggest criticism of motor voters is that there is no citizenship review or check. It's all on the honor system. And we know that motor voter has led to a number of ineligible individuals being registered to vote and added to our voter rolls. A number of people have been added to the voter rolls when they don't want to be added to California voter rolls. So it has been an abject failure. It is one of the biggest weaknesses in the way in which California does its voting. But Senate Bill 299 would make it even worse by not even allowing someone to opt out. It just automatically opts them in. And there's now going to be a complicated process for someone to then get themselves off the voter rolls. The second thing about Senate Bill 299 that's appalling and very dangerous is that it doesn't just do motor voter at the Department of Motor Vehicles. It now expands motor voter to every single government agency, particularly the welfare agencies. And you know that illegal immigrants are getting all sorts of welfare. So now these other state agencies that don't do any sort of documentation check like the Motor Vehicles Department does, even that is inadequate. But at least they're processing things like voter ID, real ID, the real ID to fly on airplanes. Now, these other agencies that aren't doing any sort of verification of identity or citizenship status, all these other agencies will also now be registering people to vote based upon any transaction that the individual brings to that government agency. This is insane. California Democrats have ruined integrity in our elections by doing motor voter and filling our voter rolls with registrations that are inaccurate and ineligible from the get-go. But they don't care. They want ballots out there floating around everywhere because they like the idea that there's orphan ballots floating around for them to go out and harvest. We know exactly what they're doing in terms of their election fraud and their election tampering. And that's what this is. I mean, there's no doubt about it. When you don't have proper review on eligibility for voting, it just invites bad behavior and problems. And it weakens what the public should have in terms of public trust and confidence in the election process. This is the real cancer growing on our democracy, and Senate Bill 299 makes it worse. So at Reform California, we are sounding the alarm about this sinister plan. They want to pass this bill in the remaining days of the legislature and then goose up our voter registration system as quickly as possible. We need to stop this bill. We also are fighting for the enactment of my California Voter ID initiative. You go to reformcalifornia.org, that's our website, click under the Election Integrity Initiative campaign, and it will give you all sorts of information on my constitutional amendment that I've drafted to require voter ID in the state of California. It doesn't just require voter ID on in-person and mail-in ballots. It requires a citizenship verification before someone's added to voter rolls. It also requires that we have a stronger standard for reviewing signatures on ballots to verify that they match. It also requires that we do a check before every election on the accuracy of our voter rolls through an audit. And that if someone has moved from their residence, that you can't automatically mail them a ballot. If there's any sort of data that the government agency, that the registrar of voters obtains that calls into question whether someone has moved, then that person will no longer automatically get a mail-in ballot. They can always request one. But we don't want to be mailing out ballots when, for example, someone submits a national change of address request, NCOA, with the U.S. Postal Service, or that their tax returns show that they've moved to another state. We want to make sure that we don't have orphan ballots. So that's what my California Voter ID initiative will require. The problem we're having, the challenge we're having, is that in order for us to make this law, we got to first get it qualified for the ballot. And we need to raise money and recruit volunteers to collect 1 million signatures to get that done. So go onto the website, learn about my California Voter ID initiative, which will clean up these voter rolls and fix the voter fraud problems in the state of California, particularly making sure that we have citizenship verification for anyone who registers to vote. Go onto that website at reformcalifornia.org, click under Election Integrity, and join the fight. Chip in a contribution and sign up to be a volunteer to collect signatures on this important measure. Plus, as I always urge you, contact your legislator and tell them to vote no on SB 299. It would worsen the problems with election integrity in California. Until next time, Carl DeMaio, chairman of Reform California. Help us break through the censorship of the liberal media. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and smash that notification button so you can stay up to date on all the developments in California news and politics. Also, please visit the website, reformcalifornia.org, for ongoing news coverage and to join one of our campaigns in the fight to take back our state. If you can, please sign up as a volunteer or chip in a contribution. This episode of Reform California with Carl DeMaio, paid for by Carl DeMaio for State Assembly 2024.